This delightful street is part of an overspill town. This street, too, is part of an overspill town. And this place, the churchyard of the lovely and ancient church of St. Mary the Virgin, is slap bang in the centre of an overspill town. They're all in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire's best-known borough. So clearly, in matters of redevelopment, Aylesbury has a lot to teach other towns. But I'm very much afraid that some of what it's got to teach is how not to do it. That particular horror is within yards of those lovely streets. There can be few other cases of redevelopment so badly matched to the town it's taking place in. To be fair, though, not everything about Aylesbury's redevelopment is so bad. The move from the old high street to a brand new shopping centre raised a lot of local hackles, but it seems to be working, at least if the number of shoppers using it is anything to go by. The whole scheme is the brainchild of Fred Pooley, the Bucks County Architect and Planning Officer, who looks out over it from the 10th floor of an appalling edifice known locally as Fred's Fort or Pooley's Palace. Perhaps his smugness derives from the fact that when you're inside the place, you can't actually see it, which is a relief because from the outside it's hideous, and even more so because it dominates the town. There's simply no getting away from it, with its coarse grey cladding panels that already look terrible and will undoubtedly look even worse as time goes on. But as a piece of planning, it does work. People come from all over the country to look at the way the bus station, the new shops, the county offices, the registrar's refuge and the library are all linked together in one massive precinct. Whether they're impressed by the sheer brutality and downright ugliness of it all is a very different matter. The giant mass of Woolworths, their second biggest store in Britain, why Aylesbury, I wonder, sticks out like an enormous sore thumb, and the contrast with the gentleness of the old marketplace is positively shrieking. Though you wouldn't think it, especially when you look at the new stuff, Aylesbury is a pretty historic place. The Britons and the Saxons were fighting over it as far back as 500 and something. John Hampden, whose statue stands in the marketplace, lived near here. He was a chap who decided that where he lived was too far away from the sea for him to pay the ship money demanded by Charles I. He made a stand against paying it and so, in his own little Aylesburyan way, helped to start the Civil War. There are other Civil War connections too. When Oliver Cromwell wasn't actually knocking the ruins about a bit or chopping off Charlie's head or going on warts and all about God and the government, he must have sometimes sat down somewhere. Well, this chair is said to be one of the places where Oliver's bottom rested. It's in a splendid 15th century pub called, appropriately enough, the King's Head, which is only a musket shot from that Cadena horror that we saw earlier. As the King's Head is both old and comfortably human, you'd have thought it would have had something to say to the people who are replanning the town outside, but they didn't, apparently, bother to listen. As the pub is National Trust property, the planners haven't been able to do anything to it, which is nice, because it means there's still a pleasant place to pop into when you get tired of the modern Aylesbury, a thing I find remarkably easy to do. Well, one more bit of history before we leave the King's Head for the newer world outside. Oliver Cromwell slept here. I don't blame him. When I was trying it out, I nearly dropped off myself. But I reckon that he did far more copping than kipping, because by the bed head is a little spy hole through which he could see and hear everything that was happening down in the bar. Aylesbury showing once again a mixture of the old and new, because if that's not the 17th century equivalent of bugging, I don't know what is. Aylesbury isn't just history, you know. It's modern too. They have a splendid industrial estate. For after all, Aylesbury is a GLC overspill town. The population has gone up from 24,000 in 1950 to 40,000 today, and it's expected to rise to about 60,000 by the end of the decade. But more people must mean more jobs if the town is to be awake and not just a dormitory. Aylesbury knows this, and here they've been a bit clever. They've only allowed light industry to come into the town. None of your harsh industrial fumes for Aylesbury. They understand reality, or do they? I've been wondering for some time whether you could get Aylesbury under the Trades Descriptions Act of 1968. Because you see, if you ask any stranger what Aylesbury is famous for, he'll say ducks. These plastic monstrosities in the shopping precinct perpetuate that myth. Myth, because although every restaurant menu in the world will offer you Aylesbury duckling, they haven't bred a damn duck in the place for years. The ducks are ended, but the memory lingers on. You could almost say the same about Aylesbury's old world charm. Nevertheless, some of that old world charm does still survive. Around the marketplace, it's possible to sit and take the air and the waters, watched over by the town's most famous fellow, Benjamin Disraeli, who was MP for the county and whose statue stands still staring aghast, I should think, at what is happening to the place he once knew and loved. Well, as we've seen, Aylesbury's been here for ages, and its favourite sons, John Hampden and Benjamin Disraeli, have survived the centuries. I wonder how long the latest lad, Pooley the planner, and his pile will last. Only time will tell.